All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something really, really strange. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery. Have you heard about this one?
Oh, yeah. A real head scratcher.
Yeah, it's 1900. And we're in this, well, think like a really remote cluster of islands. Off the coast of Scotland, wind, waves, cliffs.
Yeah.
You get the picture right.
Not exactly a tropical getaway.
Definitely not. But there, right on one of these like craggy rocks, is a lighthouse. And this is where our mystery starts.
A mystery that still has people baffled over 100 years later.
Exactly. 3 lighthouse keepers, they just vanish, gone, no sign, no trace, no anything, just silence.
And that silence, it kind of echoes, doesn't it, through all these years?
Totally. And we've got a whole pile of sources here. Historical records, firsthand accounts, and of course some of the wildest theories. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, so first things first, we got to understand just how isolated these islands are.
Right. It's not your typical island chain.
No, not at all. The Flannan Isles are like exposed to some of the most brutal weather conditions you can imagine. I mean, the North Atlantic can be pretty rough.
Oh, for sure. Think like ferocious storms, towering waves, and those winds. They can really whip across those islands.
Yeah, and reading about the construction of the lighthouse itself, I mean, wow. Talk about a tough job.
Oh, absolutely.
They had to haul materials up these like 150-foot cliffs. Can you imagine?
Battling the elements every step of the way. It wasn't just a job, it was a way of life out there.
It's true.
Yeah.
And now, it's all automated. The lighthouse, monitored remotely.
A far cry from what those keepers face.
Yeah, totally different world. So let's get to the disappearance itself. December 26, 1900. The relief vessel, the Hesperus, it arrives at the Flannan Isles. They're expecting, the usual welcome.
Right, business as usual.
Nothing.
A break in the routine. It's always unsettling, when things that are supposed to be there just aren't.
Yeah, no flag, no keepers. And the provision boxes, the ones they leave out for restocking, still full.
Untouched.
Untouched.
Yeah.
So Captain Harvey of the Hesperus, well, he knows something's wrong. Tries signaling the keepers, but silence.
That silence can be deafening, can't it?
Totally. And so he sends Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, ashore to investigate. And this is where it gets even weirder.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So picture this. The gate to the lighthouse compound, closed. Main door, locked.
Nobody home.
But not exactly nobody home.
Yeah.
Inside. It's like they just walked away in the middle of something. Beds unmade, clock stopped, no one's been there for days, it's clear.
What else?
But here's the thing. The lamps in the lighthouse, they're all clean, refilled, like someone was still doing their job, except one set of oilskins missing.
Like one of the keepers just went out.
Yeah.
In a hurry?
Yeah. And then you've got Captain Harvey's telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board. You can just feel the shock in his words.
Like, what did it say?
He says, a dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane.
So at first they think, tragic accident. Storm.
Makes sense, right? I mean, the location, the weather.
Logical assumption.
It is. But then comes the investigation, and, well, things just get more puzzling. Enter Robert Muirhead. He's superintendent for the Northern Lighthouse Board. His job is to figure this out. Yeah. But here's the thing, he knew these guys, the missing keepers. He'd even hired them.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer to it.
Doesn't it? Imagine trying to figure out what happened to people you knew in a place like that. So he gets work right, examines everything, the missing oilskins, the storm damage, especially on the Western Landing, and the damage is, really bad.
Bad how? Give me some details.
Well, there's this box 100 feet above sea level. It's smashed open. Iron railings, bent. A whole section of the railway they used for hauling stuff, ripped from the concrete.
Sounds like a pretty intense storm.
Oh, yeah. There's a 1-ton rock that's been moved. And up on the cliffs, the turf has been ripped up like 10 meters from the edge.
The power of nature is something else, isn't it?
It is. And yet, still, the sea just swallowed them whole. No answers.
What happens when you have a mystery like this? No answers. People start talking.
Oh, yeah. The rumor goes into overdrive. Sea serpents.
Lies.
Ghost ships, like everything you can imagine. It's almost like the Flannan Isles became this blank canvas for people's wildest fears.
Understandable though, isn't it? Trying to fill in the blanks.
Right, but sometimes you gotta be careful. Like those supposed logbook entries. Ever heard about those?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
So, There are these dramatic descriptions, right?
Yeah.
Terrifying storms, one keeper crying and others unusually quiet. They're praying for their lives.
Intense.
Intense is an understatement. It's gripping, it's emotional, but fake.
Made up.
Made up. Added later. Not in the real logbook at all.
So what do we have? We have a storm, a lot of damage, missing men, and a whole lot of speculation.
Exactly. But there's been some modern research too, which is really interesting.
Oh, tell me more.
So there's this researcher, James Love. He's done a lot of digging into the Flannan Isles. And he found out that one of the keepers, Thomas Marshall, he'd actually been fined before for losing equipment during a gale.
Interesting. So maybe he was extra careful this time?
Maybe. But why were they even outside at all? Weren't they supposed to have someone inside at all times? Something's not adding up.
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't quite fit, does it?
Nope. And that's where Love's theory gets really interesting.
So Love's theory is maybe there was something like really important that needed securing. A vital piece of equipment, something so important that Marshall was willing to break protocol and go out there.
That makes you think, doesn't it? But what about MacArthur, the third keeper? He was supposed to be inside, right?
Right, and this is where it gets even more, well, speculative.
Okay, I'm listening.
Love thinks that maybe MacArthur saw his buddies struggling and like ran out to help.
Right.
And then, well, got swept away too. Explains why his coat was still hanging up inside, but those oilskins were gone.
Oh, I see. It kind of fits, yeah. But wouldn't they have, like, signaled for help or left a note or something if they were in trouble?
You'd think so, right? But maybe the storm hit really fast. No time.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they thought they could just grab the equipment and get back before things got too bad. I mean, these guys were experienced, right? Used to rough weather.
Exactly. It's possible they just misjudged the situation, which, you know, is kind of tragic in itself.
It is. But still, the gate, the door, locked.
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Well, Love thinks maybe the wind just slammed them shut after the keepers left. Those winds were strong enough to move a 1-ton rock, remember?
True. You mentioned earlier about Walter Aldebert, another keeper, having a different idea.
Oh, yeah. Aldebert, he thought it was a rogue wave.
A rogue wave.
Like, picture a giant wall of water comes out of nowhere, washes one guy right off the landing.
Wow.
The other two, they try to save him, and, well, they get taken by the next wave.
That's terrifying.
It is, but it kind of lines up with the evidence, doesn't it? The damage, the rocks, the turf.
Yeah, it does. So we've got rogue waves, equipment malfunctions, anything else?
Well, there's some theories that focus more on the personalities of the keepers.
Okay, like what?
Like, one idea is that MacArthur, he had a bit of a temper, supposedly. Maybe they got into a fight, and someone fell. But there's really no evidence to suggest any foul play or anything like that.
It's like we keep getting close to figuring it out, and then, nope, more questions.
Right, and that's the thing about the Flannan Isles. It's this unsolved puzzle, a story that just won't give up all its secrets.
And it's not just a story for history books either.
Right. No. This thing has, like, seeped into popular culture. Big time.
Yeah, people love a good mystery.
It's fascinating, right? How this real-life event has inspired so many creative interpretations.
It shows you the power of a good story, doesn't it?
It does. So what are some of these reinterpretations?
Well, we've got an opera, a poem, a movie.
Oh, yeah, The Vanishing, right, with Gerard Butler.
That one. A little dark, but yeah.
Pretty sure Hollywood took some creative liberties with that one.
Oh, I'm sure they did. But it's interesting, right, to see how different artists take this mystery and, like, make it their own.
It shows you how much this story has resonated, almost like a modern myth. But what do you think it tells us about ourselves, about our need for answers?
Well, I think it shows that we like to find meaning, even when things are uncertain. Like, we want explanations, even if they're, made up.
And the Flannan Isles, it lets us explore some pretty big themes. Isolation, nature's power, how fragile life is, things like that.
When I first started reading about this case, I have to admit, I was all about the crazy theories. Sea monsters, spies, you name it. Just seems so much more exciting than, like, a rogue wave.
I get it. It's tempting, right? To go for the more dramatic explanation. But I think the real power of the Flannan Isles is in those little details, the things we don't know.
Yeah, it's a reminder that sometimes the truth is, well, maybe not so exciting, but it's still fascinating. And sometimes, no matter how hard we try, some things will just always be a mystery.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe there's a lesson in that too. Learning to be okay with not knowing everything.
So what about you, listening right now? What do you think happened to those keepers? What's your gut feeling?
Do you think it was the storm? A rogue wave? something else entirely.
It's a case with so many layers, so many different ways to look at it. And even after all this, we still don't have a definitive answer. We've turned this thing over and over, haven't we? Examined it from every angle, and still no answers.
Yeah, the Flannan Isles, it's a puzzle that people are still trying to solve. Makes you wonder why this one in particular sticks with us, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many unsolved mysteries out there, but this one feels different somehow.
Maybe it's the setting, those islands,
Yeah.
the isolation, the lighthouse, just perched there on the edge of everything.
Right. It's like almost a primal fear, being out there at the mercy of, forces you can't control.
Almost like something out of a Gothic novel, a place where you're not sure what's real anymore.
I think you're right. It's not just the mystery, it's the whole vibe of the place.
The islands themselves are like characters in the story.
They are. And you've got those three men doing their job, keeping the light going, keeping ships safe.
Yeah.
And then, poof, gone.
It really makes you think about how quickly things can change.
It does. And because we don't know what happened, our minds just fill in the gaps.
That's where all those interpretations come in. The stories, the movies,
Oh yeah, all the different ways people have tried to make sense of it.
Some go for the supernatural, some try to be more realistic, but they're all drawn to the mystery.
Earlier we talked about the opera, the poem, the movie. Anything else that you found interesting?
Oh, this one's cool. Video games.
Video game.
Yeah. There's one called Dear Esther, set on a remote island, and it uses the Flannan Isles mystery as like a starting point.
Wow, I never thought of that. I guess it shows you how much this story has, spread.
It's a story that just keeps going across time, across different art forms. And I think it says something about us, about how we try to understand the things we don't.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. We've looked at everything, right? The history, the theories, the stories. The Flannan Isles, it's still a mystery. And maybe that's the point.
Maybe it's those unanswered questions that are the most important part.
Yeah, maybe it's okay to not know everything. It reminds us that, the world's still a pretty mysterious place.
Even with all our technology, all our knowledge, some things will just stay hidden.
So next time you see a lighthouse out there in the storm, remember the Flannan Isles. Remember those three keepers. Remember that sometimes the best stories are the ones that don't have all the answers.
The ones that keep us wondering, keep us thinking.
And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.